So a very warm welcome, very good morning to those of you who are here live. This is, I think, the fifth of our 7 teachings on karma and commitment. And to those of you joining us on YouTube, then good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And so let's start today, like we usually do, with our good motivation, with a big mind and a loving mind and a very, very happy mind. And I'll do, as we've been doing, our starting prayers in English. We take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the community of most noble minds. From this moment on, until we reach the very heart of enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and all 6 transcendent virtues, may we reach total awakening and every enlightened quality to be able to truly help sentient beings so lost in samsara. May each and every being be well, live long, be healthy, be well provided for, have good friends, find respect, live in places of peace and plenty, and most of all, practice Dharma. And may they each create the causes for these things to be their wealth in future lives. May they be free from suffering and from creating the causes of future suffering. May they discover the natural, sacred well-being that's totally beyond suffering. And may they attain the great equanimity, free of closeness or distance from anyone. Deyata shame shamavati shameta shatru Om kurim ara jite karota ke yore te jovati oloyane Vishuddha nimale malapana ye kukure kaka grase grasana Omuki paramuki amuki shammedavane sawagraha bandhanane Negritva savabhava pravadina vimukta marapasha Salvetva Buddha Mudra Nogatita Sava Mariputsarita Parishuddhi Bhiga Shantu Sava Marakama. Glorious Guru, source of all blessing, ever present above our heads on lotus and moon seat, through your immense kindness, ever sustain us, that the accomplishments of body, speech, and mind flow from you, and we are one. Good. So those of you who are used to my teaching sessions know that sometimes it's not linear. We kind of do something and move on, and then I go back and we touch the same subject again, maybe a bit more deeply. I quite like that in some ways, because what we did last week kind of eased you into a topic, got you thinking about it, got you familiar with it, and so now we can return, and I want to return to the meditation karma, what's called immobility karma. And to remind you of something that was touched on last week, and maybe to help you think into it a little bit more deeply. If you remember, I explained that the Buddhists who do in depth, and as their main practice, shamatha meditation and vipassana meditation that takes one through the 4 levels of dhyana accomplishment. We call it in Sanskrit dhyana. If you know Theravada teachings, you'll have seen it as jhana, Jhana, not jhana, Jn, not the one that looks like janana, but jhana. So Jhana, the 4 jhanas, the 4 dhyanas. In Sanskrit is dhyana. As you may know, dhyana is the word that went from India to China, and because of, what can you say, linguistic national habits, they couldn't say dhyana like Indians, so it became chan. If you look at the word dhyana, become chan. So Chan Buddhism is actually dhyana Buddhism. And then the word Chan, when it went from China to Japan, became Zen. It's the same word. Dhyana, Chan, Zen. So anyway, what we saw last week is that people, when in the Theravada tradition, when they do this in-depth shamatha as their main practice, they build an external object based on one of the elements, like they call it a kasina. They use that as their focus. The main point of the beginning, which we saw last week, was the obstacle overcoming stage, or the obstacle removing stage. Well, first you have to learn the technique. That's the first stage, learning. Then the obstacle removing stage is to be one-pointedly with your object. Of course, the obstacle that stops that is distraction. Distracted by this, distracted by that. So we learn to bring the mind back and focus and focus. And then it gets, how can you say, more real. And without thinking about it too much, it brings up all the questions we find in our Buddhist philosophy. So there you are, sitting on your cushion in your good posture and all the rest. You're looking, it's mainly eyes, at this yellow square. Where is that yellow square? They're not asking themselves this question. They're just using that as a focus, but that's their focus that their mind's with, as they say, earth, 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 and keep their mind there. But first, it really looks like it's outside, and then you make it, it's about 1.5 meters in front of you, maybe 1 meter. It's the right distance so your eyes don't get tired. Your awareness is on an object, but it's not really. Where is that yellow square you're looking at? Now, if we use modern, don't know where they teach it these days, primary school, maybe physics, maybe lower secondary school. Light is reflected off the yellow square, comes into your eyes, stimulates the back of the eyes, sends a nervous message to your brain, and you're only aware of the yellow squareness when it reaches your brain. So actually, when we are focused on anything, any object of meditation, it's our brain focused on our brain, the image in the brain. Even though it feels like we're looking at something out there separate for us, as you sit and meditate, there is what is called the counterpart, which is in fact the brain image created by the visual cortex, right? So once that's so familiar, because you're sitting for hours and hours and hours looking at the same yellow square, and saying, it gets so familiar that even if you close your eyes, you maybe dream of it at night time. What is it in your dream? What is it if you close your eyes? It's the mental production, reproduction And once the distraction is dealt with and the obstacle removing phase has been therefore completed, then one is absorbed in the mind's yellow square. Now, the reason I'm going back and revising this is because the yellow square is a form, just like a blue circle or red triangle for fire. It's a form. So when there is absorption in the mental counterpart, which is our sixth consciousness, then the doors to the five consciousnesses, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, are closed. You are gone. That's what the word absorbed means. It's like when something goes into a vacuum cleaner. There's something there on the table. You didn't mean to pick it up, but you're vacuuming and all of a sudden it's gone. It's been absorbed. We are gone. And you can go and be absorbed for hours, days. When he was training in this, our great lineage master, Khenpoken, could do 13, 14, 15 days. And he would just sit, didn't need to eat, drink, go to the toilet. His five senses closed down, absorbed. That total absorption comes with, as we saw last week, peace, bliss, mental well-being, physical well-being. So there is a form. So last week we went through very quickly the 4 stages of dhyana, characterized by the first one. You remember it had a deliberate thinking, analysis, physical well-being, mental well-being, and then we saw how gradually it got more and more subtle until in the end, all that we want in the most subtle state of peace that overcomes so many subtle obstacles. You need to overcome so many obstacles to get there, is equanimity. But always based on form. The meditation we're doing has a form to kick it off and that we get absorbed in. The power, the meaning of the 4 elements and so on, which are very important in Buddhism. So then beside the 4 dhyanas, remember dhyana was the fruition, the state of absorption with its various qualities. There are also 4 formless meditations. Form leads to the 4 dhyanas, but then there are 4 formless meditations. So let's look at those briefly. Now we've got the idea. First one is called limitless space or infinite space. Now these ones, although they are part of practice that many of us don't do, or never do, and that we find them in the Theravada tradition, what I'm about to tell you will be very relevant if you are doing Mahamudra, Dzogchen meditations that help throw a light on where your mind is going. And when you read words like spaciousness, a feeling, when you hear the word feeling, get a bit suspicious. Feeling, right? Somebody's having a feeling, right? Okay. I'm meditating, I'm having an experience, a feeling. Is that why I'm here or not, or what? So a feeling, an experience of spaciousness. So the first of the 4 formless meditations is called infinite space, endless space. So once you've done the 4 dhyanas with form, you're very used to the absorbed mind. So now the mind is absorbed in endless space. It's endless. It's not up to there or up to there. No matter how far you go, how big the universe, feeling for the mind, endless space, and absorbed in there. So if somebody does that practice of meditation while they're alive, because we're looking at karma, and if that's their accomplishment, then that can lead that when they die, they don't go through an bardo in between life experiences. Their mind, which is in endless space, stays in endless space. Remember, this is beyond the bliss, physical well-being, mental well-being, is equanimity, but now that equanimity is endless space. You may have this as a meditation experience. It will be very nice. It will feel very liberating in a way. So, in terms of karma, their mind leaves the body, but it doesn't really leave, but it stays in endless space, the body dies. But because it is karma and produced by the cause, which is meditation, then depending on how long, how many years, how many months you've been doing that meditation, then there will be a long time spent in that absorption, but it ends. And then you pick up whatever karma is next on the list. Could be anything. If you remember the 4 dhyanas, we're always going from what is gross to what is more subtle. You're in the mind, you've reached absorption, and then you realize that, yes, but it could be even finer. And in order to get to the finer, we have to overcome like physical bliss. Is nice. What does nice mean? We think just now, probably you think, if I say there'll be a Ken Holmes course next week, in-house course, you have to come, but I guarantee you 1 whole week of non-stop physical bliss and mental bliss, guaranteed. Otherwise, not just your money back, I give you £10,000. You probably come for the experience because we like that kind of thing. What is liking it? Why is that better than something else? Where's our samsaric history that likes some things, experiences more than others? This is better, this is worse. So, we're working with the mind, seeing the bliss, mental bliss, physical bliss, okay. Come a long way from being in samsara, but nevertheless it can be more subtle than this. And we need to get rid of all the ideas and attachment to better, worse. This feels nicer, this doesn't feel so nice. This is comfortable, this is less comfortable. Things to work with, distractions. So we're used to absorption, we're used to equanimity, and now there's infinite space experience. And then absorption in infinite space. So what's happening? So let's say you want to meditate there. Has that person's mind actually blended with infinite space throughout the universe? Is that what's happened? If we had to wake them up to tell them the house is on fire, would we need to bring their mind back from the very ends of the cosmos and billions of light years away? Because they've actually integrated with space? No, not really. No. Their mind. So what they realize, the next step, is that actually it's not that I've gone into endless space. It's an endless feeling of consciousness. So the second formless meditation is endless consciousness, infinite consciousness. Yes, I'm not suddenly been dissolved into endless space. My consciousness, my absorbed sixth mental consciousness is realized, that's what it feels like, as infinite. And it would be very helpful if just now we could all sit together and be in infinite consciousness for about 5 minutes, so we can talk about it afterwards. Talk about this actual experience we just had. The next step, we're without form, and there's no focus. The 5 sense doors are shut. The mind is in this feeling or experience of infinite consciousness. Endless, peaceful. What's there? It's different if you're aware of something, if you're conscious of something, conscious of a sound, conscious of anything, you're conscious. Here, there's just consciousness itself. Nothing to be found. So the third level of absorption is in, I think these days we'd say nothingness. The actual title is nothing whatsoever. Because what is this consciousness? Not conscious of something, but just the feeling of endless equanimity of consciousness, endless consciousness. It's now there's nothing. So the mind is absorbed in nothingness. Nothingness. Same story, the same with infinite consciousness. Whatever you've done, achieved while you're alive, if it's stabilized, absorption, then when you die, you end up in that state for as long as it lasts, and then another karma takes over. The final step is, nothing whatsoever. Nothing whatsoever. Just a minute. But something knows there's nothing whatsoever. And if it was really nothing whatsoever, there'd be nobody left, no meditator. There is. So then the fourth formless meditation is called neither cognition nor absence of cognition, because you can't find any cognition as a something. But then on the other hand, there is something that knows. You can't say what's going on because nothing's going on. But there is something that knows that nothing's going on, very subtly. So it's called neither cognition nor absence of cognition. These states can be quite useful. If somebody's very good at meditation because of their past life history, then it's useful for us as Mahayanists, as Vajrayanists, when the time comes, if that's what our meditation teacher instructs, to let our mind be in dhyana 1, 2, 3, or 4, or in infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothing whatsoever, neither cognition nor absence of cognition. And then we do a practice which is called turgal in Tibetan, which means hopping backwards and forwards, where in order to make your mind agile, you need to be able to go from infinite space to any one of the other 7. Hop, hop, absorbed, straight in, straight out to another one. That gives us a very flexible mind and gets us familiar with what could be for us, especially in Mahamudra, misleading experiences of just infinite consciousness or nothingness. And it will be very relevant to what we started last week, which is interdependence, which is the real meaning of voidness. So we must never mistake voidness, shunyata, emptiness, whichever word you like, for simply a spacious state. A spacious state is a spacious state. The most extreme spacious states are these: infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness. But that is not the meaning of shunyata, emptiness, voidness. The meaning is always the wisdom of interdependence. So I wanted to go back to take you a bit deeper into this idea of the mental counterpart, absorption, and then absorption in form, and absorption in the formless states. Out of the 4 dhyana and the 4 formless absorptions, then the 4th dhyana is the really interesting one for becoming an arhat, for getting free from samsara. That's the working basis, the equanimity that's there, the mastery that's there. It's the working basis for then opening up the mind to the 4 noble truths. A real direct vision, not ideas, direct experience of suffering, its causes, liberation, their causes. So now we need to go back to where we started last week. And you remember we were looking at interdependence and interdependent origination, how everything depends on something else to be what it is. In space and in time, we were looking at this classical teaching on the 12 links of interdependence, how they're depicted on the rim of the wheel of life by symbols, and what they really mean. There are various ways of looking at them, and last week we started looking at the seeing them over many lifetimes, 3 periods of time. Everything in all our past lives leading up to your bardo consciousness that was born into, number 2, this life, and then what we're doing in this life that will make our future lives. So we're looking at them over 3 time spans. If we go back, you remember the first link was ignorance, which meant ignoring our true nature, ignoring whatever we define as the true nature according to our level of Buddhism, whether it's simply peace, whether it's Buddha nature. That depends what type of a Buddhist you are, which type of Buddhism you're following. But ignoring the true nature led to the development of a sense of self. But that self, as soon as there's a sense of self, it has needs, it has things it doesn't like, and so on. And so through ignorance, then there was a sense of self. And so the ignorance was depicted by an old blind person struggling across a landscape. So blind, ignorant to the truth, and then struggling with a stick, because not seeing the truth, we are very handicapped, very challenged. But we, in another way, it's amazing. People manage. They manage with their life. It's just incredible. We make our way one way or another, even in the most appalling circumstances. Somehow we manage. So that's incredible. It really is like somebody who's not that fit, can't see where they're going, but nevertheless, with the help of a stick, they're making their way. So that's the root cause of all of what follows. What followed in the past was that through ignoring the true nature of our mind, the false idea that we are a somebody, that we are a persona, a somebody, led to desire, aversion, and relative level ignorance. That led us to create karma, and then through the karma we made many, 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 many lives. So that was represented by a potter shaping a pot. So a pot is a very kind of a simple thing on a potter's wheel. The clay is being shaped. beautiful image for interdependence used by some Buddhist schools to talk about how things work, because you have a raw material, the wet clay, and not just the wet clay, but the wet clay on a wheel that's spinning it round. So you've got spinning wet clay. I just think of it, visualize it, spinning wet clay, and then hands guided by a vision, guided by a skill, that know how to, either with their fingers or with an instrument, to shape that wet clay, so that then once it's in the right shape, you can make a pot. So a pot is a fairly simple shape, but in our past lives, through the ignorance, through the idea of a very strong sense of personality, me, with needs and things it rejects, then we made karma. And the karma, we made karma because of the world we're in, which is like the wet clay on the wheel, the spinning wheel of samsara. The wet clay is all the karma we inherited from our past lives. And what do we do with it? Where do we take it? How do we shape it? How do we react to it? What do we turn it into for the following lives? So it's a very, very beautiful image for reflection. We can spend a nice time thinking about this second link, which is called karmic formations, or the word samskara in Sanskrit. Come across that quite a bit. So there we're looking at all of the past lives that led up to your leaving your previous life and having your bardo consciousness loaded with the most recent karma, the most powerful karma, because of all those past lives. So the general picture all the time, as we go through these 12 links, always remember, nothing just happens. There's always a reason. We can't always know the reason, but there's always a reason. And there are reasons behind the reasons. We see this in Tibetan medicine. We see, why does somebody become unwell? Well, it's because their diet, they're constantly eating this. It's like Tibetans, they like to eat nettles when they're in season. But if you don't blanch the nettles first, and you eat lots of nettles, they can cause lots of eye problems. So we need to boil nettles first. So you could say, immediate problem, eye problem, immediate cause, nettles. Nettles that weren't blanched. Okay, fair enough. That's the immediate cause. But then how did you end up, the you that's going to get nettles? How did the nettles end up there? Why did you end up Tibetan? You're a Tibetan who eats nettles, and people in Indiana don't eat nettles and whatever it is. They eat burgers. So behind the immediate causes for what's happening, what we all see and what science sees, there are the longer term behind the behind causes. So all the time, nothing just happens. There are always reasons. So here we're looking ignorance, karmic formations, the long-term history of ourself that led to our last bardo consciousness linking up with our parents in this life. And then we saw that the third link was consciousness, meaning the consciousness, your bardo consciousness that joined up with your parents' physical components, ovum and sperm. And so that's represented by an image of a monkey swinging from branch to branch of a tree. You're in the past life, and now you cling to another branch, a new set of parents, a whole new reality, and there you are on that branch. We're in this life. So that's not under our control, unless you are a very, very advanced mind. Once you die, what happens to your mind between lives is just programmed. You don't have much choice. You're not sitting at the controls like we are now. We can make choices. We're lucid. You can switch Ken off. You can keep Ken on. You can choose to have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, while you're listening to Ken or not. We're in control. In the Bardo, you're not in control. Your past is in control. It's like in dreams. Things just happen. So that's why it's the monkey consciousness. And then I think as far as we got was link 4 last time, was name and form, which is once you have been conceived, then even though you're just one cell or a couple of cells, you don't have eyes, ears, senses, none of that stuff yet. But your fate is sealed. That's you conceived into that life. Already,
Paul,
you're
it's 11:08.
Your future physicality is already programmed in your DNA, and we know that now. So even though you're one cell and you don't have eyes or ears, if you're going to have, like, I've got ears with long lobes, okay, and I've got brown eyes. All of that's programmed in this one cell, which doesn't have ears or eyes. We know that it's in the DNA. So like that, our life's experiences, our mind tendencies, they are also programs, but they're not up and running yet. It's not working. So it's called name and form. You have the form. You've got your cells that are developing, multiplying, and name means nominally you have the other 4 aggregates, feelings and cognition and samskaras and then consciousness. We can't be conscious yet because we don't have eyes to see. We don't have ears to hear. We don't have nerves to feel. So that's there nominally, and it's shown by the image of the people in the boat. So we did that last week. Let's do the first 4. Why have we got this programming for a whole life? Because it was all in link 3, the Bardo consciousness. Why did we have that Bardo consciousness? Why? Because we had all of our past lives up to and including the last life, which shaped our mind and our karma into that way. And why did we have all those past lives? Ignorance. We didn't realize we are Buddha. And we went looking for ourselves somewhere else and got into a bit of a pickle, bit of a problem. Samsara. So now the embryo develops, becomes a child, and is born. So next thing is that we have the 6 sense faculties. So the 5 senses plus mind consciousness, 6 consciousnesses. So eyes develop, ears develop, so then the embryo starts to hear, become conscious of where it is, and so on, and then you're born, which is quite something, because you've been there inside your mum for 9 months and more. Ooh, you go through this doorway and it started. Your life. And now this equipment that's been developing inside your mother's womb, now all of a sudden there's a hospital, there's the room where you're born, there's people, they're talking, and you're put on a piece of cloth and you feel that on your skin, which has been suspended in fluid until then. And then from then on, our life is one sensorial fairground ride, of baby food or mother's breast, mother's milk, baby food, and all the way up to junk food. And then you go off junk food, you become vegan or whatever. You're going to have the taste experiences, your eyes are going to see so many things, your ears are going to hear. And they're going to learn to hear language, and what people are saying and saying to you and saying about you. That whole adventure takes place through the five senses, five sense consciousnesses, processed by the sixth consciousness, mind consciousness, which is the main experiencer. So the six senses, or the six consciousnesses, is a house with five windows and a door. That's the image. The various images, that's one of the possible ones. So we talk about the mind as a sixth sense, because just like you can see, like just now you can look at your screen and see me, just like you can hear, just now you are hearing me, Ken's mellifluous voice. And so in the same way, as our eyes see sights, our ears hear sounds, our nerve endings feel sensations, so our subjective mind consciousness can explore memories, ideas, philosophy, fantasies. It's like a sixth sense. So it's a house with five windows, the five sense windows, and a door, because when we explain these six consciousnesses, we often do it with the hand, and we say that although they're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, physical sensations, they all lead into mental consciousness, which we show by the forearm. If it doesn't end up in the mind, you don't see it. Even if your eyes are open, but you're listening intensely, or you're thinking about something, you're not seeing. The five senses only are real for you when they're processed by mental consciousness. So we have the six consciousnesses. Why are they there? Because we were conceived into a human body as an embryo, link 4. So now you've got your five senses and your mind conscious. Five, let's say you've got your six consciousnesses, and you're alive and you're born. So what are they going to do? The next step is contact. It's called contact. It actually looks more like touching or connecting. So now we've got eyes and we're born and we can see. Our eyes will see shapes and colors. There'll be contact. And our ears will hear sounds. Five senses. And then our six consciousness will have memories, hopes, even from quite young. Babies learn how to cry to get their way. They want something. There must be some sense of anticipation, programming. If I scream loud enough, this will happen. And so anyway, sixth consciousness, contact is the next thing. If we didn't have the consciousnesses, there wouldn't be seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, feeling, knowing. So that's represented by a couple embracing, very vivid human image, two things coming together. But here we mean the sense doorways that we had. Because there's contact, then there will be sensation. This follows immediately. We have, or feeling, you can say. For number 7, you can say feeling, or you can say sensation. There are only 3. Nice, not nice, nothing happening. So, just now, if you just sit quietly with your 5 senses working, There's lots of input. Most of it's neutral. But then sometimes what we're hearing, seeing, how we feel on our seat and so on, it's nice or it's uncomfortable. So here we're looking at raw feeling. Before we think about it, just how it is. As we scan our eyes around the objects in the room, there'll be some, oh, nice ones. And then, and some you don't like. And especially in life, somebody comes in the door. This is a very vivid example. The door's moving. You don't know who's coming in. And then you see who it is. There'll be, your heart will leap, your heart will sink, or nothing will happen. So contact, sense contact usually, but the same with the mind. If you remember some things, then it's very nice. You remember other things you don't even want to, you want to shut the memory down straight away. Lots of things as you remember, it's neutral. We can expand those 3 feelings into 5. We can say mentally nice, physically nice, mentally unpleasant, physically unpleasant. Neutral is neutral, nothing's happening, so you don't have, so you can make it 5. So this is represented, quite vivid, by a person with an arrow in the eye. And so contact, visual contact, arrow in the eye. A very vivid image for English people, because the last time England was invaded, if you want to understand the English, just remember they're an island that hasn't been invaded since 1066. If you think of the history of nearly every other country in the world, invasions, movements, domination, and so on. If you want to understand why the English are like they are, it's a very good thing to understand. So the last time they were invaded was 1066, Battle of Hastings, when King Harold of the English got an arrow in his eye. So it's quite vivid for us. They lost to the French. So anyway, there's sensation. Now, link 7 that we just saw, sensation, is important for us because in this 12 links, it's the first opportunity we have to do something about what's happening. Links 1 to 6, certainly links 1 to 5, you can't do anything about if you think about them. Link 6, contact, you can isolate yourself, and monastics do this. They go into a place where there's no sexual attraction, if that's possible, where there's no worldly distraction. In a sense, we can reduce the contact a little bit. We can do something about it. Number 7 onwards, up to number 7 as well, we can't really do very much. We can do something if you learn to meditate, because then the sensations you experience will be changed by meditation. When your eye sees something attractive, that's been attractive all your life, then through meditation, then there won't be those feelings. But the reason for that is because we've been working on link 8. Link 8, sorry, I didn't express that last bit very well. Link 8 is the real place we can start doing something. So the sensation will be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So much of our lives is spent chasing pleasant sensations and avoiding unpleasant sensations. This is the prime motor force of our samsara. This we don't like, that person we don't like, the way they speak we don't like, what they say we don't like, what they do we don't like. This person, oh, more of that one, please, a lot more, and so on. And then these days it's almost ridiculous. Perfumes. You have this perfume for the toilet area, different one for the bathroom, another one for the living room, and then a different one again for your bedroom. Your bedroom is ocean breeze, whereas your toilet is exotic fruits. And people do this. And then furniture, making comfortable furniture. I have friends in Durban, in South Africa. They have the most comfortable sofa I've ever sat on in my life. It's an experience. I mean, they should charge people for it. It's just perfect. As you sit on it, at first it absorbs you, then less and less. And it's not soft and it's not too hard. And when you sit in it, you just don't want to get up because you feel so good. I don't know how that's achieved. I mean, there's probably the whole history of humankind in sofa making has gone into it. But, that is what people would say a sofa to die for. So according to our budget, we can afford whatever approaches that. And if you don't have any budget, then you've just got hard wooden chairs. But we spend so much, the music you listen to, the sounds we want in our ears, the double glazing we want to keep noises out, the food we eat. We learn to cook from all the different cuisine traditions of the world because we're looking for this sensation today. No, we had that one yesterday. We did curry this week already. We won't do curry till next week. When we look at life and the five senses, how we are chasing pleasant experiences and avoiding unpleasant ones. This is really where Buddhists get to work. So that the eighth link is called craving, but it means more generally reaction, because craving's the one craving is the feeling of, this is not, I like this, I'd like more of this, and or I want to keep this particular experience going, not just move on to another one. Kiss me again, darling. It's another one. So craving, but it also means rejection. It's want to get away, don't want this, don't want it there, need to be somewhere else, be in different circumstances. So this attraction is like a magnet. The two ends of it is a couple of magnets. We're either pulled towards things or we're pushed away from things. The sensation that comes before it, the feeling, is pretty automatic. We can only change that slowly over many years by reprogramming ourselves. When we look in mindfulness training at consciousness and how it works split second by split second, we see contact, feeling, the feeling we can't do anything. It happens immediately. You see, and then it feels nice, not nice, before you've got time to think or do anything. That's how it is. But then because it feels nice, this means wanting more, wanting to prolong, being attracted to. There, we can change that more quickly. So the symbol for that, the image, is a woman offering a drink to a man. So this is a traditional image. It could be a man offering a drink to a woman, whether the drink is alcoholic or not alcoholic and so on. But it is, I'm so scared of being politically incorrect. I don't have to be, I have to think 10 times before I give an example. But it's like a prostitute in a doorway. Let's put it that way. I don't know if you've ever been through those kind of areas of towns, but it's like, how about it? Interested? Can give you a good time, babe. You know, it's this kind of pull into something. And I suppose because we have to be comprehensive the other way around, it's like a glower, a sort of look from somebody, which means get out. That's the image. We can work on our historical programming there. The next link, we can even work more easily if we begin a Buddhist, because it's when it's called grasping. It's the same thing, but stronger. We've had the contact, we had a feeling, nice. And then that feeling, nice, drew us towards the reality, whatever it is. Grasping is the planning stage. Okay, I'll carry on with these sort of, how can you say, man-woman images, or man-man, or woman-woman, or whatever you like, but attraction, right? Attraction. So it's, let's take one where two people meet, or they're in the same room, and there's contact, eye contact. If you ever saw West Side Story, I think it starts like that, you know. There's eye contact, and then there is this feeling, nice. Of course, it's just shapes and colors coming into your visual field and triggering responses, but then we know about karma. Maybe you're meeting somebody that you've been with in past lives for the first time in this life. So that eye contact is more than just shapes and colors triggering your visual cortex. But anyway, contact, feeling, pleasant. Whereas you've been looking around the room at people, and this all of a sudden is a contact that's not just pleasant, but you want to stay with it. Oh, something's going on. You want to stay there. So the next stage, grasping, is planning. I can go over there, say something. What can I say? Talk about something. Maybe get a phone number. You know, it's you are now deeply involved, planning, working out what to do. So that's a man or someone plucking a fruit from a tree. The fruit's there, the fruit of more the past is there. Pleasant, we've been looking at the pleasant examples, but also unpleasant. An angry situation, a fight situation. Are you going to get into it or not? Are you planning how to combat, deal with what you don't like or what you do like? Grasping. The next stage is called becoming, because now we take the process to its conclusion. We actually do something. Hello, I've never seen you here before. Oh, it's a nice place, isn't it? Yeah. And are you Dutch? Are you? You know, question, talk like that. How about we meet up tomorrow for a coffee somewhere? And then you've launched the process. And depending, that's going to create karma. Start a new relationship, start a new fight, whatever it is. And so the becoming means you are starting to create karma. The actual karmic creation starts there, link 10. And with link 10, we come to the end of the links that are in this life. Links 1 and 2, and half of link 3, the Bardo consciousness, were before this life. Links 3 to 10 are what happens in this life. Because of creating the karma through link 10, becoming. So becoming is represented by a couple making love, or a pregnant woman. It means the deed has been done. It's been started. The process has started. The child of your future karma is conceived. So then the next two lives are there. The next two links are your future life and future lives. So because of the karma we make through becoming, then we will be reborn in all the various ways we saw in the karma teachings. And so that's symbolized by a woman giving birth, we're reborn. And once you're born, inevitably there's old age and death. We grow up, we grow, we change, and in the end that life is over. So if we look back, we would never get old and die if we weren't born. Why do we get old and die? Because we were born. We would never have been reborn if we hadn't done all that karma. Link 10. Why did we do that karma? Because we got involved with link 9, grasping. And why did we do that? Why did we grasp at the fights and the loves and all the rest of it? The situations of wanting to be, wanting to become, wanting to be powerful, wanting to be rich, the wanting or the fighting against this. Why did we grasp to the point where we actually acted, which is link 10? Because there was the craving. There was the feeling of, this is nice or this is unpleasant. Because there was the feeling. Why was there the feeling? Because there was the contact. Why was there the contact? Because of the six senses and so on. We can work back. So then we get the 12 links of liberation by working backwards. We can be liberated from old age and death if we are not reborn anymore. We can take away the causes for rebirth by not becoming, by not creating karma, not enacting what our mind would want us to enact. We can not make karma by taking away its cause, which is grasping, involvement with reality, and so on. We can work back the 12 links of liberation. And if we think about that, not just me telling you, we think about that deeply, what's possible, what's not possible, what practices, what can we do with our lives to get out of the suffering of rebirth, inevitable rebirth, and aging, death, you can understand why the most powerful and deepest teachings go for link 1, which is ignorance. You get rid of ignorance, you get rid of the whole lot. So this is why it's not a nice image these days, but it says it's like cutting the trunk of a tree. And the tree's got often one trunk, then that becomes a few main branches. They become smaller branches, and they become smaller ones with leaves and fruit. Our life is complicated. So many aspects. It's like all the little branches and leaves and fruit. Why is all of that there? It all stems from the bigger branches, and they all go into this one trunk with its roots in the ground, which is ignorance. When ignorance goes, then the whole process of samsara and suffering goes. Once we've studied these 12 links, the way we have just now, over 3 time periods, this life, what was before, what's afterwards, and we think about them again and again, and we observe through mindfulness, especially contact, feeling, craving, grasping, doing, those chains, we can see that in another way, all 12 links can happen in one instant. The way our mind, through ignorance, is lost from Buddha nature, is lost from shunyata, deep meditation experience. The mind is plunged into the present moment reality through those 12 links in over a few seconds. We are born into, this is why we talk of the unborn mind, unborn awareness. Our mind isn't lost in this and that, and him and her and all that. It's not lost, it's in its true nature. So the 12 links, we can look at in many ways. In the moment, over huge periods of time, but always the main idea is everything depends. What you're seeing, contact, what you're seeing as you look at me on the screen, visual contact and all the things that will produce, is interdependent. I've got a camera, I've got a face made by my mum and dad. I've got a camera that's looking at that face, turning it into electronic signals, sending it through all of this process into your home, and that's on a screen, pixels making color, and that's triggering your eyes made by your mum and dad, that's triggering your brain made by your whole life's experience. And every one of those things in this second of interdependence, as you look at me, has its own reasons and its own reasons. Nothing exists all by itself. Nothing. Nothing. Everything depends on other to be what it is. If my internet signal drops, you don't see me anymore, and so on and so on. Everything depends. This is the real meaning of shunyata, of emptiness, of voidness. Nothing exists in its own right, all by itself. Everything depends, and the big depending is on karma, cause and effect. So at first, when we read Buddhist texts, we may think that the Buddha or a Bodhisattva or a yogi's experience of shunyata, this spaciousness and so on, is that they're in some kind of a state. Spacious, babe. Spacious. But the space is knowing that whatever's happening in this moment is not just that experience. It depends. It's linked, it's connected, and what it's connected with is connected. And it's endless, and that moment's already gone. Because other interdependencies came into play. This is shunyata. It's wisdom. It's knowing that. It's not a meditation experience. That's why we looked at the karma of meditation experience. You can make special states, infinite space, and so on. They have causes, they have results. The real meaning of shunyata is so important for us, makes us Buddhas. It's the wisdom that understands interdependence. When we study interdependence, we also, and we don't have time in this course, but there is what we are studying is called second level interdependence. It's how eyes, ears, you, me, we interact, we make karma. But because interdependence means nothing's there without a cause, then we look at, yeah, okay, my eye sees this form, I form. And that I came from your body being created, but the I itself and the form itself are composed of the 5 elements. So understanding the elements at play in subject and object, mind as well, is a very, very, very deep topic. 5 elements. So we had a course on the 5 elements this year, earlier on. But just to flag up now, that first level interdependence for Buddhists is about the 5 elements, and they're everywhere. The whole of everything is nothing but the field of the 5 elements at play. It's amazing. It's why, for instance, in Tibetan medicine, we look at that very deeply. The elements in our body and how the elements in nature, in minerals, in plants, and so on, they're the 5 elements. Our body is the 5 elements. How can we bring balance back into this set of the 5 elements using those elements out there? Situational elements and so on. It's amazing. In our modern world, with science, we would tend to think more in terms of it's all atoms, it's all particles. To say, okay, you, me, we're just many, many trillions of particles and so on. But when we talk in Buddhism about elements, we're looking at the fundamental composition of the tiniest of particles, when you can't divide anymore. So the 5 elements, the 5 aspects of the tiniest particle are that it has presence, which we call mass in physics, as the earth element. That presence is linked with other particles. We call that gravity in physics. We call it the water element in Dharma. There's an innate energy in the particles, in the linking with other particles, energy that's either there or that can be released. We call this energy, energy in physics, and we call it fire element in Dharma. This is not static. The whole process is in very dynamic motion all the time. Particles, so all particles are in motion. Motion, kinesis in physics, wind element in the elements, and then none of that could happen if it weren't for space element. So the first level of interdependence is very much to do with the elements. What we looked at in the 12 links is secondary level of interdependence. So now in the program, today was meant to be going into Buddhist ethics and morality and commitment, particularly commitment. But so that will have to be, next week we don't have a session. Next week it's our monthly Tonglen meeting for those on the Tonglen program. So we meet again in 2 weeks' time. So I hope you'll have a lot of time to think about what I've talked about today, what we've done so far, as being karma is the Buddha's presentation of how it is. Not how God made it, not how somebody decided it, just how it is. That's how it works. So if we kill each other, then in future lives we get damaged, come back to ourselves, we can be reborn in horrible states and so on. We looked at that. It's just the way it is. And we'll be considering, okay, that's the way it is. How wisely are we living, given that's the way it is? And in particular, what karma are we creating in this life? What's that going to mean for our very own future? We'll need to be considering the power of habit and realize that there are good habits, not good because anybody said they're good, but given the very nature of things, what we call good or virtuous, is what brings well-being, happiness, long life, all these things we prayed for at the beginning. Good friends, good health, long life, being born in a place of peace and plenty, having respect from others, and all of that. We call that good. That's called general Dharma. Human beings like those things. So we have good habits, and we have bad habits that create trouble for us and for others. So when we look at commitments, we have to go through the lists. The Buddhists, we've got lists of numbers, and we look at the various vows, commitments, promises we can make. But the whole idea is, and especially, I was going to say at the beginning, but maybe especially all along, we can be pretty weak. What can we do to help ourselves? What deep promises can we make? How can we make them so that we can keep them? How can we avoid not breaking the promises we make to ourselves and to others? If we make a mistake, what's the best way to put it right? And so we'll be looking at this power of determination, of commitment that we have as human beings. You know, if we look at animals, dogs and cats, they can be lovely, and they can be committed to their owners, sort of in a way, but not committed to karma. You know, if one dog wants to launch into another one and rip its throat out, it'll just do it. It won't sit down and think about it for a couple of minutes. Is this a good thing to do or not a good thing to do? And you know, if dogs want to make love, they make love. They just do it. There's no kind of moral aspect to it. So we humans have a power to know and to understand, and a power to promise. And that's what we need to look at, our power to promise. It's maybe you can think about that before we do meet again and talk about these things, because often we make promises, how can you say it, in bright moments, but we break our promises in darker moments. And what we want to do in Dharma is to learn how to take a commitment and keep a commitment very, very nicely, very usefully, very beautifully. What we'll look at in this remaining 2 sessions of the course, very briefly, is 3 levels of commitment. Promises we can make. Promises to ourselves primarily, but we also make them to the refugees, to our teachers, to our Sangha. The first level of promise is committing ourselves not to harm. Very important. It's this lovely term, ahimsa, not nicely translated as non-violence. And of course we don't want to be violent, but violent in itself is a violent word. You know, violent immediately it's got a red flashing light feeling to the word. But ahimsa, that we're not, you know, ahimsa means not himsa, doesn't just mean being violent. It means causing any damage, harming to ourselves, to others. So we must stop the harm. Any intelligent, awakened human being must be doing all they can to stop the harm. This is our first level of commitment, summed up in Buddhism by what are called the pratimoksha, or the self-liberation vows, because by committing ourselves not to harm others, we are liberating ourselves from the harmful effects of karma, taking away the causes of our own future suffering, liberating ourselves. The second level of commitment is on the positive side. It's committing ourselves to making good karma, doing the virtuous things, doing the helpful, kind things. We'll look at those. And then the third level, I can hold up 3 fingers, is specific commitments to helping others. So not harming, virtue, helping others. Yeah, that's what we'll be looking at. And then very briefly seeing how these work for us in terms of basic Buddhist vows like the 5 precepts or monastic vows for not harming. The Bodhisattva vow, which is about the last 2, really helping others and practicing virtue. And then very, very briefly, we'll look at tantric vows or Vajrayana vows. The whole point of Tantra is summed up by having a guru, a teacher, and following the teacher's instructions, which are tailor-made for you. So how to keep that working relationship pure and powerful. Yeah, so let's dedicate whatever was good and useful in this morning's session. May whatever virtue was created by this session contribute to the state of omniscience being attained. Through the main enemy, our mind's defilements, being completely defeated. Through that, may each and every sentient being become freed from the ocean of existence, troubled by the waves of rebirth, aging, sickness, and death. May this precious bodhicitta arise in those in whom it has not arisen. May its development know no setbacks, and may it increase ever more and more. Through this virtue, may I quickly achieve Mahamudra and establish every single sentient being in that same accomplishment. So, thank you very much, and it's over to you now. I don't know if you've got anything you'd like to add or to say.
Hi, Ken. Well, first of all, thank you very much for your description of the 12 links of interdependence. I thought they were very clear and very useful. No matter how many times maybe we've all read them or gone through them, I thought that was a very good description.
Oh, thank you.
You start your comments towards the end started to touch on my question a little bit, and that is, how do other beings experience karmic consequences? I mean, most of the examples in other previous weeks, whether it's full maturation, corresponding, or environmental, they're all relating to a human existence. We can see in the case of animals, or some animals, and you were referring to that toward the end, that they also can experience, some can be born in good environments, some can be born in not so good environments for themselves. But I've been thinking, do beings in the other 4 states, how does karmic experience affect their existence? Or is it that they just live their life and the karmic consequences are, how are you to put it, suspended until they get reborn into a relatively physical existence.
Yeah, that's what our when we study in Tibetan Buddhism, it's the 6 realms of existence. But that is one of the main ways we study the first of the Buddha's 4 Noble Truths, which is the truth of suffering. It's not just to, how can you say, whinge on about suffering everywhere. It is to look about what's actually going on. You know, what are animals, what are spirits, what are devas, what are hell beings, what are whatever they are, and to look at it from both sides. What is the material existence they have out there, and how do they feel about it inside, like with the Deva realms, with the material Deva realms, not the ones we looked at this morning with the meditation karma, the absorptions, but the ones where they're paradises, I suppose is the word we'd use. It's paradise on the outside, and but on the inside, the mind is, however we put it, a sense of entitlement, laziness is another word, because that's just how it is, and how it is for a long time. Complacency is another word. So the inner and the outer are studied in the truth of suffering. If we really want to look into the details, then that's in the Abhidharma teachings, where we look at something like one topic is called 22 faculties. These are key faculties, and we see which beings have all of them, some of them, mind faculties, physical faculties like seeing and not seeing, and so on. Which beings are in a sexual reality, where there's male, female, which ones aren't, all that kind of thing. We kind of make a breakdown. They're really excellent at this in the Theravada tradition, with long lists of, it's like a technical scientific analysis of the various states of existence. But one point that's brought out in the Karma teachings is that in the lower realms, then when you're in those realms, you don't make much karma. You're mainly going through a time of experiencing the results of your past karma made when you were human. In the human and Deva realms, then we can make karma, and that karma may play itself out over tens, hundreds of lifetimes. It's not as though in those lifetimes, like if you're reborn a rabbit, it's not that rabbits don't make karma, it's said, but they make very weak karma. So in the way that karma naturally programs itself, because we're looking at natural processes here, the weak karmas made in the lower realms will be overridden by, even if it was a long time ago in terms of lifetimes, karmas made whenever we were human or Deva before. And then, yeah, that's to put it briefly. It's a huge topic. Karma's a huge topic.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'd like to say hello. I can see faces I didn't say hello to at the beginning, so big hello to each and every one of you. Yeah.
I had a question.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, you go, Yale.
No, it's okay.
Okay, it's a quick one anyway.
Okay.
My question was that does stage 8 of craving, the reacting to sensation, does that relate to the 8 worldly concerns?
No, the numbers 8's the same. Well, craving, grasping, that would be more like number 9, the 8 worldly concerns. That's when we really There's time in link number 9, grasping. It's when we have the time to plan, to savor, to get involved with something. Number 8, the craving, is a pretty sort of knee-jerk reaction to a situation. It takes a split second or a second or two. It's the grasping link, which is more like getting involved with the 8 worldly concerns.
Okay. And so you can undo kind of this react, or you can slow down that reaction by using meditation. Is that right? For number
That's
8?
right. Yeah, that's what it says about meditation. The more we become mindful or aware of what's happening, the more we can catch the processes closer to their starting. Like we are attracted, and then that causes a first involvement, which causes the grasping, which is a deep planning involvement. So the better our meditation, the closer we can get to what's called snipping it in the bud, where in the very first moments, once we're familiar with the way our mind, just like if you're in an aggressive state with somebody, sometimes our mind can go through the same thoughts, the same imaginations again and again in the day. So once we get familiar with that, we can stop it earlier and earlier. Oh no, going there again, stop it, change subject.
Mm-hmm.
And then snipping it in the bud becomes an automatic process for meditators, whereby as soon as something is happening, you feel it energetically in your body, you see it through awareness in your mind. It just disempowers it, pulls the plug on it, doesn't let it happen.
Okay. And I'm just thinking about the Buddhist practices generally. I can imagine doing things like purification practices and the such like. Is that linked in with link 8, or more with changing kind of ground consciousness?
I wouldn't tie it directly in with any of these 12. I'd just say purification practices. They're more like cleansing the whole ground for all of this and motivating us to work with mindfulness and awareness to deal bit by bit with these things when they come up.
Okay, thank you.
Purification practices, if anything, they are going to link us to links. They're going to work on links 1 and 2. Because if it's like Vajrasattva practice, we are connecting with our Buddha nature, and that is purifying away, in general, all of the karmic formations.
But the main ones we can change as practitioners now are links 8, 9, and 10. Like we have
Yes.
the potential to change things there by what we do.
Yeah, and working backwards. The first one we can work on is 10. We're not going to make that karma anymore. We deal with our emotions and feelings, however it is, but we're not going to actually say it or do it and make harmful karma. That's the easiest place to work. Then we're working behind the scenes on all the grasping that's part of that. And then it gets much finer. We're dealing with split-second reactions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, Yale, you had something.
Yes, I had a question, but I think I'll leave it for next week because what you're about to talk about will be actually relevant. So just mention it, and it just came to my mind, but I think after next week.
Yeah, well, 2 weeks' time. Yeah, the next
2 weeks' time,
one.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Well, infinite silence. Okay.
Ken,
Yes, Steve, hi.
I can see the connections of mindfulness and how that can help us nip it in the bud. How do you stop that bud of craving starting in the first place?
Yeah, that's the work on the what we call the bodhisattva levels. You need 5 stages of the path. The first 2, we're still being reborn, we're still working as human beings, and our mind is basically in samsara. Level 3, stage of insight, first bodhisattva level, we gain non-return stability where Buddha nature is there. Keeping the mind in Buddha nature has a meditation name, it's a samadhi. It's an absorption, but not like the absorptions we've been looking at in this session, because it's awake and it's co-present with everything that's happening. You sometimes see this word co-emergent or coexistent or simultaneous. So we don't lose Buddha nature. Being basically in Buddha nature is called the Vajra-like samadhi. It's indestructible. As we work up, then in 3rd and 4th stages of the path, which 3rd level is first bodhisattva level, then 4th stage of the path is the remaining 9 bodhisattva levels. This Vajra-like samadhi becomes more and more powerful. And then at the 8th bodhisattva level, the power of all of those previous bodhisattva levels and meditation work of being in Buddha mind destroys duality. And duality really is the bud, because it's self and other. If there's no self and other, there's no craving, there's no wanting, there's no contact, there's none of these things. It's completely different here in the Buddha mind, which pervades everything and everybody, totally pure. On the surface, you've still got the remains of your history, getting thinner and thinner, disempowered. But the way to take away the root cause of all of that, the duality, and then the deepest level of ignorance, the finest levels of ignorance, is called the Vajra-like samadhi. So before we reach that, there's a stable, never to be lost reality. And we have the first 2 levels, the paths of accumulation and fusion, whereby we train in shunyata, we train in interdependence, so that we are working towards that, or Mahamudra, Dzogchen, whatever we call it. We're working towards that stability with the true nature, in the true nature.
A bit of work to do then.
A little bit, yeah. But you never know. I mean, you never know, because past lives aren't always bad news. Sometimes we have a lot of help from what we've done in our past lives. There's no one can say how long it would take. I mean, in the text it says, Milarepa is an interesting case. It says that generally it's the people with dull faculties or sharp faculties. People with dull faculties need to do an awful lot of work and meditation and study. Things sink in very slowly. It might take years, decades for things to sink in. That's the bad news for slow faculties. Good news is they don't have so much pride and arrogance, which can become big problems on the path. But anyway, those with sharp faculties get it. Would it take somebody with dull faculties 10 years to just really see, gosh, that's so true? Somebody with sharp faculties, with a good background from past lives, been there before many times. Sure. Where's the problem? Of course, it's there. That's the good news. The bad news is that can lead to a lot of arrogance, which becomes itself a spiritual problem. So when we look at this, we see Milarepa, who's kind of our hero for many, many Buddhists, and his wonderful life and his work. Why did he need to build all those towers? Why did he need to meditate 12 years all alone in a cave, so hard, eating nettles and so on. You see, because he was somebody with dull faculties. Quite interesting. But he had perfect remedy for dull faculties. He had faith in his teacher, and he had diligence. So even though his mind wasn't sharp, like that, he had the right tools, and he became Buddha. It's amazing. So sometimes we've got from past lives a lot of help, and that can be very, very encouraging. And then the other way around, what Taisutapa says so often is, well, once you're on the path, even if it takes 100 lives, each life's a little bit better, 1% better, and you can take it slowly, surely, be happier and happier. So, yeah, nice work to do.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, see you all soon, and be well until then. We did the dedication already, so just say goodbye.
Thank you, Ken.
Bye, Ken.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Ken. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Ken.
Bye-bye.
Arigato.
Ciao, everyone.
Bye-bye.